A few years ago, upgrading your PC was almost a ritual. You checked prices, compared latencies, picked the right brand, and for relatively little money, you could give your machine a second life. Today, you open an online store, search for RAM, something that used to be one of the cheapest components, and suddenly it feels like you're buying gold bars. So what happened? Why is memory going up again? And more importantly, what does artificial intelligence have to do with your gaming PC? Because this time is not just another market cycle. This time the change is structural. If you've been in the PC world for years, this isn't new. We lived through the cryptocurrency bubble, we lived through the pandemic shortages, we saw GPUs that were impossible to find and prices that made no sense. There was always a temporary explanation, a trend, a demand spike, a logistics disruption, and eventually the market stabilized. But now something is different, and that difference is artificial intelligence. Most gamers think of AI as software, chatbots, image generators, smarter NPCs. But AI isn't magic, it's infrastructure. And infrastructure needs one thing above everything else: memory. A lot of memory, absurd amounts of memory, and cooling, but that's another story. Training large-scale AI models requires massive data centers. Thousands of graphic cards working in parallel, each with enormous amounts of VRAM. Every server is loaded with high-performance memory modules. And this is where something important happens. Manufacturers don't produce memory for gamers or for AI, they produce memory. And whoever buys at an industrial scale gets priority. Every production batch redirected to data centers is capacity that never reaches the customer market. Every multi-billion-dollar contract signed by tech companies reduces the pressure to keep prices low for the average consumer. And suddenly gamers stop being the main consumer, they just become secondary. For decades, hardware evolution was driven by gaming. GPUs grew more powerful because game demanded it. RAM increased because games engines required it. The consumer market was the engine. But now, the biggest consumer of computational power is no longer you, or me, or even the global gaming market. It's data centers. AI has turned memory into a strategic resource. It's no longer just a component, it's critical infrastructure. And when something becomes critical infrastructure, its price stops responding only to consumers' demand. It responds to the economic power. This isn't just a temporary price increase. It could mean several things. That upgrading your PC becomes increasingly expensive, that minimum game requirements grow faster, that PC gaming slowly becomes more elitist. And the most interesting part, hardware development may stop revolving around us. Because if the most profitable market is AI, innovation will move in its direction. More VRAM for massive workloads, more optimization for parallel computation, more focus on servers. Gaming will benefit indirectly, sure, but it won't set the pace anymore. And very few gamers actually want AI inside their games, including me. And here comes the uncomfortable part. AI is also pushing technological progress. It improves development tools, it can optimize game engines, it can help create more complex worlds. We are not looking at a building, we're looking at a shift of priorities. The question isn't whether AI is good or bad. The question is, are we ready to stop being the center of the hardware universe? There was a time when consumer hardware represented the technological frontier, and today that frontier lives in data centers. RAM is not only the component that expands your PC, it's the fuel model that trains machines capable of writing, designing, programming, and even playing games. And doing stupid things like this.
Hey, stop that! It's midnight! Hand over the banjo!
And when a resource becomes strategic, its price stops being just a label. It becomes a geopolitical, industrial, and technological consequence. But there's another cost, one that doesn't show up in online stores. The same infrastructure that is making your RAM more expensive is also what allows millions of fake videos, hyper-realistic images, and automated speeches to be generated in seconds. The same computing power training giant models, it's feeding social networks with content that's increasingly difficult to distinguish from reality. And here the problem is no longer the price, it's the use. Because AI isn't growing only to help you edit faster or code better. It's growing inside a system that is dominated by attention. And in that ecosystem, what generates the most money isn't the truth. It's virality. For decades, technology amplified the creator. Photoshop didn't replace the designer. A game engine didn't replace the developer. A video editor didn't replace the filmmaker. They were tools. useful tools. But now we are entering a different phase. Models that generate entire videos. Voices indistinguishable from a real person. Avatars that simulate a real presence. And here an uncomfortable question appears. Is AI supporting creativity? Or is it starting to replace it? AI cannot truly create by itself. In the end, it has no imagination. It only recombines references from the internet and produces something that looks new. And this also affects gaming. Not only because of hardware prices, but because the computational power that trains models can generate entire NPCs, scripts, world dialogues, and entire cinematics, which sounds impressive, but also raises something deeper. If machines start producing content at a massive scale, what happens to the value of the human creator? If generating worlds becomes trivial, will handcrafted design still matter? I'm not against AI as a supporting tool. That would be absurd. It's powerful, it's useful, it's inevitable, but a tool amplifies the intention of the person using it. And when that tool is developed at an industrial scale, driven by enormous economic interests, it isn't always designed to empower people. Sometimes it's designed to replace them, or worse, to manipulate them. We are funding through our consumer hardware an infrastructure that doesn't necessarily put us in the center. We are paying more for RAM, while systems capable of simulating reality at a massive scale are being built. And maybe the real debate isn't technical. Maybe it's cultural. Do we want technology that amplifies human creativity, or technology that dilutes it into synthetic content? The line between real and generative content is becoming thinner every day, and not everyone is able to distinguish it. AI engines do require RAM, yes, but with a different structure. They aren't the same sticks we are used to buying. That's why the shift from consumer production to industrial demand has had such a strong impact on the prices in recent months. Demand hasn't necessarily exploded, but the supply available to the consumers has dropped significantly, and that opens the doors to resellers, who push prices even higher, sometimes by 200% or 400% since July of last year. Maybe in a few years we'll look back at this moment and realize it was more than just a price increase. Maybe it was the moment when technology stopped revolving around the user and started revolving around the system. AI can be an extraordinary support tool, but if the industry starts using it to replace people instead of supporting them, we're going to have serious problems. Technology should serve people, not the other way around. I don't have all the answers, but I do think that these questions are worth asking before the changes become irreversible, because technology moves fast, and many times we realize something went wrong when it's already too late. If you are someone who builds their own PC, optimizes every FPS, and wants to understand why the market is changing, subscribe, because hardware no longer evolves just for us. And I want to know something. Is AI expanding our possibilities or starting to replace them? Let me know in the comments. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.